Hello and welcome. A big thank you to the team at My Tax Accountant for arranging today's discussion. We're diving into a topic that, let's be honest, probably crosses a lot of our minds, but feels a bit like a mystery. We're going to pull back the curtain and find out what actually happens when you report someone to HMRC for tax fraud. We'll follow the entire journey, from that first tip-off right through to the final consequences. So let's get into it. You know the one I'm talking about, right? The local builder who offers a pretty nice discount if you pay in cash, no questions asked. Or maybe a business that seems to be absolutely flying, but you just know their official books can't be telling the whole story. It just plants a little seed of doubt. But what if you actually acted on it? What happens when you decide to make that call or fill out that online form? Well, the journey of that single report is way more complex and, frankly, a lot more interesting than you might think. So why is this even a big deal? Let's start with a number. £31 billion. For the 2025/26 tax year, that's HMRC's latest estimate for the UK's tax gap, the difference between the tax that should have been collected and what actually came in. And just to put that into perspective for you, did you know that amount of cash could build more than 60 brand new, fully equipped hospitals from the ground up? It's an absolutely colossal sum of money that's missing from the public services we all depend on. And look, this isn't some abstract problem happening on a spreadsheet somewhere. That £31 billion gap hits us all, right where we live. It means less funding for our NHS. It means fewer resources for our kids' schools. It means more potholes on the roads we drive on every single day. And beyond all that, it's just not fair, is it? It puts a much bigger strain on the millions of us who play by the rules, while letting others get an unfair advantage. Every single pound of tax that isn't paid is a pound that an honest person has to make up for. Okay, so you've seen something that just doesn't sit right with you, and you're thinking about reporting it. What's the next step? Let's walk through exactly how you do it. You'll probably find it's a lot more straightforward and much safer than you'd imagine. So who exactly are we talking about here? Well, the net is incredibly wide. It could be a freelance web developer in London who's not declaring all their income from those side projects. It could be the local takeaway that's deliberately underreporting its takings to pay less tax. Or it might even be a larger company paying staff cash in hand to get around paying national insurance. And remember, that's the money that funds our state pension and other crucial benefits. Basically, if you suspect money is being earned but not declared, it's something HMRC wants to know about. Making that report is designed to be really simple and, this is the most important part, completely confidential. The easiest way is to use the secure online form on the gov.uk website. It literally walks you through it. If you'd rather talk to an actual person, you can call the dedicated HMRC fraud hotline. Or, if you want a paper trail, you can even write it all down and send it by post. The key thing here is that every single one of these routes is built from the ground up to protect your identity. All right, here's a pro tip for you, and this is the bit that could make all the difference. For a report to actually lead somewhere, details are everything. Just saying, I think my neighbor is dodging tax isn't going to give HMRC much to work with. What you need are specifics. What's their full name and address? Do you know the name of their business? Can you give any examples of undeclared jobs, with dates or locations if possible? The more solid information you provide, the stronger the case you hand over to the investigators. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room, the number one thing that stops people from coming forward, the fear of being found out. It's a totally valid concern, which is why this guarantee is so vital. HMRC's entire system relies on tip-offs from the public, and they know that system would completely fall apart if people weren't protected. They are legally bound to keep your identity secret. The person you report will never, ever be told it was you. This whole process is designed to keep you safe. Period. So you've done it. You've gathered all the details, you've filled out the form, and you've hit submit. Your part is over, but for HMRC, things are just getting started. Let's go behind the curtain and see what happens next. Your report kicks off a very specific chain of events. First, all your information is logged. Then an assessment team takes a look. They check it for credibility, maybe cross-referencing it with data they already have. Next up is prioritization. A case involving a huge company potentially dodging millions in VAT is naturally going to jump to the top of the pile. If your report is seen as credible and important enough, it gets assigned to a specialist team, sometimes even their elite unit, the Fraud Investigation Service, to really get to work on it. Okay, this is where it gets really clever, because we're talking about more than just paperwork and phone calls. HMRC's biggest weapon in this fight isn't an army of inspectors. It's an incredibly powerful supercomputer system called Connect. And stay with me on this, because how this system joins the dots is genuinely mind-blowing and probably a little bit terrifying if you've got something to hide.
Connect is like a digital bloodhound on a massive scale. It sifts through and connects over 55 billion different pieces of data. We're talking bank records, land registry details, credit card transactions, council tax, even information from overseas. It also scans public information online. And yes, that includes social media. It's looking for things that don't add up. So, for example, if someone is declaring an income of, say, $25,000 a year, but their social media is full of pictures of a brand new sports car and five-star holidays, Connect flags that discrepancy and an investigator gets an alert.
Now, if HMRC does decide to launch a formal investigation, it can take a few different forms. The most common is an aspect inquiry. Think of this as a spot check. They might just ask about one specific part of your tax return. Then you have a full inquiry. This is much more serious. It's a top-to-bottom review of all your business and personal financial records. And at the very top, there's the fraud investigation. This is a full-blown criminal investigation reserved for the most serious cases where they believe someone has intentionally and deliberately set out to defraud the system. So the investigation is complete, and HMRC has found that something's not right. What happens then? Well, it's not always the dramatic courtroom showdown you might see on TV. Let's look at the real-world outcomes. The most common outcome by a long shot is a financial penalty. That means paying back all the tax you owe, plus interest, and a fine on top of that. In other cases, HMRC might just put the person or business under a microscope for a few years, monitoring them much more closely. For the really serious stuff, it can absolutely lead to a criminal prosecution and even prison. But of course, if the investigation doesn't turn up enough proof, HMRC will simply close the case, and that's the end of it. Now, the size of that fine isn't just plucked out of thin air. It's all based on your behavior. If it was a genuine, careless mistake, the penalty can be as low as 0% or up to 30% of the tax owed. If the mistake was deliberate, meaning you knew you were doing it but didn't take steps to hide it, that penalty jumps up to between 20% and 70%. But if your actions were deliberate and concealed, you knew it was wrong and you actively tried to cover it up, the penalty can be as high as 100% of the tax owed. You could literally end up paying back double what you tried to hide. And listen, the consequences go way beyond just money. HMRC can name and shame tax cheats, publishing their details online for the whole world to see. The reputational damage is huge. If you're a company director, a serious offense can get you banned from running a company for up to 15 years. If you're a professional, like a lawyer or an accountant, you could lose your license to practice. It can literally be a career-ending moment. Right, before we go any further, let's just bust a very common myth. You've probably heard stories, maybe from the US, where whistleblowers get massive cash rewards for reporting fraud. That is simply not how it works here in the UK. HMRC does not pay people for information. Reporting fraud is seen as a civic duty, something you do to help keep the tax system fair for everybody. All this talk about investigations and penalties naturally brings up a really important question. But that's not all. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. It's easy to focus on what other people might be doing, but it's crucial to make sure your own affairs are squeaky clean. Let's talk about your role in all this. So really, it all boils down to this. The single best way to sleep soundly at night and avoid all the stress and expense of an HMRC investigation is just to be completely on top of your own taxes. That means keeping good, accurate records, declaring everything you're meant to, and getting your tax returns filed correctly and on time. That is your ultimate shield. And that leads us to the final and maybe the most important question of this whole discussion. I want you to take a moment and be really honest with yourself. Are you absolutely 100% certain that your own tax affairs are perfect? If there's even a tiny bit of doubt, a bit of side income you forgot about, an expense claim you weren't sure of, it is always better to sort it out yourself before HMRC comes knocking on your door. If you do have any of those nagging doubts, or you just want that peace of mind that comes from knowing an expert has got your back, then getting professional advice is the smartest thing you can do. The team at My Tax Accountant offers completely confidential, expert help for any tax issue you can think of. Their contact details on the screen for you now. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. For more clear, helpful discussions about tax and finance, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the My Tax Accountant YouTube channel. It really is the best way to stay informed and stay compliant.